Well, a renewed battle this week over global warming, whether it even exists at issue. Joining me now, two of the best experts on climate change. John Coleman, he's one of the founders of the Weather Channel. He says global warming is nothing more than a conspiracy. Good to have you with us. Henry Pollack, he says there are many examples of global warming, and it's for real. Good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Let me turn first, if I may, to the issue of what Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General of the UN, said this week. He said, to be sure, the economic crisis reduces our resources. It threatens to deflect attention from our global problems, from other global problems, climate change, issues of water and environment, and economic development. So let me ask you, if I may, John Coleman, what are we talking about here when we're talking about deflection from other problems?
We're talking about the greatest hoax in history. Let's understand this. There is no man-made global warming or climate change of any significance. And so the whole thing is a phony call for quick action. And why they want quick action, of course, is because their support is collapsing amid a turn to much colder weather worldwide. And as we turn to a cooler climate, people are losing faith. And half of the people in the United States are now saying, global warming? You got to be kidding me.
Professor Pollack, what I've seen from NASA and from NOAA shows that last year was 8th, or NASA says, perhaps NOAA says about 9th warmest year on record. Are we indeed, as John says, seeing a cooling on our global environment?
Climatologists don't pay a lot of attention to year-by-year variability, whether it's a warm year or a cold year. They look at the long-term trends over decades and centuries, and there's no question that the long-term trend is towards warming.
And it being toward warming, how do we determine that it's man-made?
We look at the various causes of what has caused climate change, both in the past and in the present. They're not always the same, of course. And we try and measure the strength of it, every factor, whether it be volcanic eruptions or greenhouse gases. We make an attempt to measure their effects. And in the last half of the 20th century, when the temperature has been going up and the ice has been melting, we find that only the greenhouse gases are moving in the right direction.
John Coleman, your response?
He misses the mark totally. What was happening in the 1980s and 1990s was that the sun was hitting the peak of a 25 or 27-year solar cycle. And so for a couple of decades, the warming of Earth seemed to coincide with the increase of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and the global warming alarmists who are preaching all of this catastrophic climate change, sheer silliness, thought they had proved their point. Well, they hadn't at all. In 1998, the warming stopped. In 1999, the cooling began. By 2000, it was dramatic. And now we have a dramatic cooling trend, and the sun has gone very quiet. The ice has frozen up on the North Pole again. We've had a snowfall that set records in many places around the world, not just in the United States. And any link between CO2 and their perceived warming has totally been unproven.
Professor Pollack, how do you respond to that, and particularly the issue of solar cycles, its influence on the magnetosphere as well as overall the atmosphere of the planet?
If the sun was causing the warming, then we would find that the entire atmosphere, the upper atmosphere, the lower atmosphere would warm. But in fact, only the lower atmosphere is warming and the upper atmosphere is cooling, and that's a signature of the way the greenhouse gas warming would affect the atmosphere. If it were the sun, it would be the other way around.
Well, let me ask you, and that is a persuasive point. Let me ask you both this. Let's assume for right now that there is such a thing as climate change. Let's assume it's man-made. What indication, what evidence do we have, what reason do we have to believe that mankind can do anything significantly to reverse it? Because a number of people, as you know, in the last 2 weeks have reported that this is a 1,000-year trend irrespective of what we do. Professor Pollack first.
I think that just as we have been the principal causes of the climate change, we can also be the principal remediation. But it will take time to undo what has been put into the atmosphere inadvertently over the period of time since the Industrial Revolution. The long-term consequences simply reflect the fact that CO2 stays in the atmosphere for more than a century.
So what I'm asking is, what can be done in time to really to reverse everything that you claim has been done to the atmosphere by man over the last 150 years?
We need to totally rethink our energy policy. President Obama has pointed out that our national security issues associated with dependence on foreign oil, with the national economic turmoil in the country and the globe,
Professor,
and the warming of the climate are all the same problem. It's our need for a new energy policy would address all three.
Terrific. All right, thank you, Professor Pollack. John Coleman, thank you for being with us. We appreciate it, gentlemen.